Okay. All right. So this is Hunter back with Gringo. Gringo, how you doing, man?
I'm doing all right, doing all right. Just doing some hustling out here.
Yeah.
If it sounds like I'm in a wind tunnel, it's because I'm in my truck, just coming back from an appointment that I had earlier today. But I'll make sure I made some time for you guys and for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
That's what
Rect
I'm doing
America,
today.
Rect America, and the audience of Rect America appreciate you, Gringo, and making time in your busy work week.
Anything I can do?
Well, thank you, man. Thank you. Well, look, a lot going on in the world. Anything you want to share with the audience about the perspective? Got protests going on in the midst of a COVID-19 pandemic. It's like it just never stops. So,
Yeah,
any words or thoughts for the audience you want to share about just the state of the world from Gringo's perspective?
yeah. Um, I I'm not necessarily, you wouldn't ever see me as someone who's mixed. I do have some attributes, but my great grandfather is African American. I grew up, and that's my dad's side, and I grew up in a decent area, but it was mostly, I was actually my minority. If you were to consider me a white person, I was actually minority, and so uh, that was kind of the culture that I grew up in, and then always kind of, growing up and all that stuff, I never really saw a lot of, craziness as far as clashes with, African Americans and whites and all that stuff because we were just kind of together. That was just the way it is.
Mm.
But, getting older and older, I start to see more in social media and more outside of where I grew up. Um, and it was a lot of racism and things like that. I didn't really experience it too much, but also I look more white than I do mixed. So I
Mm-hmm.
never really got a lot of that from the police forces or from different things, from different places in society. But growing up and understanding that's the kind of stuff that a lot of people went through, and even my family members went through, I've always wanted to kind of have that lightning bolt to change.
Mm-hmm.
And this happening, um, is an unfortunate reason for change, but the changes itself is something that I'm always been very, very wanting to happen. And I'm just super happy because when we all mix in different cultures, when we all mix in different um, countries, life is just better.
Mm-hmm.
Life is just so much better. Um, African American culture, especially the Cajun culture down in South Louisiana, that's the way me and my dad love to cook. Just the food alone is just something that you know,
Okay.
if bringing it into the white society is something that people
Mm.
need, people want, people should have. And when we all come together and we bring our different cultures and different ways we live and stuff like that, it's just it makes the world a better place. And so this type of change is exciting for me. Like I said, the reason it's changed is not the exciting part. It's an unfortunate part, but I'm just happy that the change is coming in a way.
Mm.
Um, and
That's
that's what
good.
I'm excited for. I'm tired of the reasons for the change, but I'm happy for the change.
That's good. That's good. I like the way you put that. Yeah, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. Well, thank you. Let me take us back to our last conversation, and um, we were talking last when we talked last. We were talking about um, um, in the sharing. We're talking about being sick as your secrets um, uh, and dealing with issues around acceptance and shame and how that impacts addiction and recovery. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and um, I wanted to, with you, Gringo, um, and talking with others, something that's come up frequently, and other people been talking to as part of Rect America, is when they look back in their story, the story that eventually landed them in rooms of of recovery, um, they can identify some period in their life where um, things went sideways or something happened, and they they knew that or they felt different, and 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 even kind of felt like they they took on uh, uh, and as part of the a part of coping, part of being able to um, survive or move forward, given just something in life, um, they they began to operate differently than other people or their family or the community around them, and 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 that became a part of the beginning of the behavior, or in some of the we talk about character defect or whatever, but they can almost pinpoint a time in life when that happened. Is that true for you? Is can you have you in your work, can you think, does it work for you like that?
Like pinpoint a time when I knew it was all over, or when, or when,
It kind of when it started,
when
something,
it
yeah,
started. Okay,
when it started,
gotcha.
yeah, when it started, yeah, going yeah, yeah, and some can go back to childhood. I mean, when it was just something, they're, and again, it not necessarily, again, so I'm not, you don't start drinking at 5, but you know that, but that something happened where later in life they kind of felt that the drinking was, or secret, just something that
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, because of course we know that the addiction to alcohol is the tip of the iceberg. That's at the surface level. It's always what's underneath,
yes.
and so when they
Hmm.
look back at what's underneath and kind of trace that back, there's often some something, in many cases there's something that happened, or something about their family of origin, or something that was causative in some ways for what spiraled into this behavior that eventually brought them into recovery. Is that applicable for your life, for your story, for you, for your character, for Gringo?
Yeah, well, that's actually a tough question for me because I'm not too sure. I've never, you know what? I've never even thought about if whether or not I had like that aha moment of, man, there's something different about me. I'm trying to think if I did, and if I had that, then I couldn't tell you the exact moment.
Mm-hmm.
I just it just was. Mm, hmm. No, not off the top of my head, I can't think of it, but I just knew that, like I said, I just knew I was different. I just felt it. I mean, I'm still a super weird dude.
Okay. Well,
So
okay. Let's just put it this way. Seemed cool to me, but when you say you knew you're different, what was the earliest age when, quote unquote, you felt that way? Let's put this.
I want to say me being probably in kindergarten where uh it's gonna sound a little weird. Um Probably in kindergarten where I could not I wanted a girlfriend so bad when I was like 4 or 5 years old, and I was super overly emotional about that type of stuff. And I knew
Mm,
I was like, and I would look around being like, why am I the only person that wants to be be a ladies' man, you
mm,
know? And
mm,
I mean, I don't know if that was if that really contributed to my alcoholism, but I feel like in a sense that my over emotional and overly like um sensitive uh self was a huge contributor of my alcoholism. I would overly, be an overthinker, oversensitive, uh, body and mind I could suppress with alcoholism and things like that. And so, you know, I'd had a broken heart when I was like only 6 years old. You know,
Mm,
that's nuts
mm, right.
for a kid who's barely even made it to first grade. Um, so yeah, I would look around and be like, why am I the only person who feels this way right now? You know, and then come to know that it was just a kind of an early age for me to kind of develop that sensitivity and that mindset. And from then on, I kind of knew that I was a little bit different in that department. But I was definitely a ladies' man in kindergarten.
Mm,
that was kind of a different thing.
that's interesting.
I remember having two girlfriends,
In
in
kindergarten.
pre-K.
Wow. Mm,
Yeah,
interesting.
I mean,
And yeah,
I wish I could have kept up with that, but man,
yeah, and as relates to did with that, and your interests, whatever, but were there any issues with at that time for you around like acceptance or shame, or was that part of what, you just like girls? I mean, that's natural, but I mean, did they like you? I mean, was that reciprocated, so to
yeah,
speak?
yeah, yeah, yeah. But the acceptance part came, after the when you know it's the fad of the day, that pretty much the fad of the week, where you be in a relationship with a girl in that age. It's just you know they like one thing for one week, and then the next week they're off to something different, and the acceptance was I don't understand. The shame is why don't they like me enough? And it was just a very, very weird time in my life of experiencing that at such a young age and not really understanding why am I feeling this way, what's going on. And it was just a thing that I just knew at that point that I am a little bit different than the little kids around me in that way, in that sense. And obviously things more was revealed when I was older. But if you're gonna ask me when was the first time that I really felt off about who I was and what was going on in my brain, I guess that was it. Is getting into a really early wanting relationship and then having such an adult feeling heartbreak at age 5.
Mm, got you. Yeah, I kind of have some memories of that myself. Now that you're
Yeah.
talking about
Oh,
it,
maybe
it's
we're
kind of,
not so much different there.
yeah, yes, yeah. Like I said, yeah, I remember a childhood crush back. Yeah, wow, yeah. This is bring back memories for sure. So yeah. So that with that being said, um, how and I'm not trying to draw parallels or things that are there, but I know you said later, and I don't know what point later start how much later started, but your, and this is my language, but your sense of humor or kind of being a jokester or a class clown or whatever. I don't know. We talk. So, was there any connection between you know um, that how that happened, or how things happened when you were so attracted to ladies so young, and then
Yeah.
it becoming that you became this person that was jovial or always, is there a connection there? I'm not trying to make something where it's not, but is it, you see?
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, humor is sometimes, some of the best things that a lady can, have for a man.
Ah, ah,
If you look on 90% of the profiles for on online dating, swiping left, right, and all that
yeah,
stuff, if they were to say, hey, this is what I want in a man, confidence obviously is like the number one thing, but I bet humor is right behind it. you
yeah,
know.
wow, right, right,
Um, so yeah, I knew from early on, man, I gotta be funny. and it got me noticed by not only my peers, but obviously from ladies, and I think it was also, in a sense, with my anxiety and stuff, a deflecting tool of my anxiety and maybe even early bouts of depression that I didn't know it was depression since I was so young. But yeah, humor sometimes is used as a buffer for any negative feelings that might seep into my mind and body. But of course, yeah, in the end, yeah, it was for attention and adoration from both my peers and the ladies, of course.
Mm-hmm. A term that's used, we've used it. I may have said I did say a minute ago, and it's certainly a term used in the rooms of recovery. Character defect. So,
yeah,
when you're thinking back and processing this, um, um, is do you see any connection between what's going on in this in your life here and quote unquote some kind of character defect?
Say that last part again.
And so and what how you're processing this as you're kind of reflecting on what was going on in your life, you know um, childhood and the beginnings of some kind of I know you said that some anxiety, some depression. Was it what
Yeah.
ages was that happening for you?
I can't tell you when it began and all that
Yeah.
stuff. I do remember, bouts of it. I remember this time when I'll never forget this time. I go to I was sitting in a movie theater with my mother, super young, probably 12, 13 years old, maybe even younger than that, maybe 11, 12, 13. I can't remember the exact time. And I was reflecting on my grades in school. And I had this, I couldn't even concentrate on the movie. I just had this insane anxiety about whether or not I passed this one test that I had just done probably, a couple days before. I can't remember, it was maybe if I had done a test and completely bombed it, or maybe the test was coming up, but it had to do with school. And I remember not being able to focus on anything but about how sick I was and the anxiety that I was having and going, I was like, and I had no idea that normal people don't really go to this extreme in their brain and body and soul. Like, I felt like I was about to pass out. And I don't even think it was even that big of a deal. Like, I don't even think I even did the test yet or something like that. Something had happened. It was just about anxiety of the future of whatever was going to happen with my schooling. And I remember I was about to pass out right there in the theater because I could not just get out of it. And I was only 11 years old, barely 6th, 7th, 8th grade. I can't remember what it was. It was before high school. And just going, what is going on? Why is my body feeling this way? And not really understanding what anxiety is all about. I don't remember what you had asked, but yeah, I just that just made me feel something different, and I just go, man, this isn't right. This isn't like everybody else. And yeah, that was just one of the examples of me going through something that I'm thinking is possibly just a normal thing, maybe at the time, because I'm so young, I have no life experience yet. And then looking back on it retrospectively and going, man, that's craziness. I should be enjoying life, being a jovial little kid, like you're saying, just enjoying life. And I just my own brain just kept getting in the way of that.
Did you make in that moment, again from that theater experience?
Yeah.
What was And I'm listening to what you said in terms of your thinking about what you should. Did you? How did you or how did you resolve to move forward? Was there any like, did that, was that in any way a turning point for you? Did you, from that point on, was that, because I don't know if you realize this, but you've mentioned that before. And now I'm interested because you brought that up. So clearly that was
Okay.
which is that was some kind of defining moment for you.
Yeah,
And,
you know what? Maybe we just found it.
yeah, and so then my question from that moment, was there anything that came after that that kind of that you resolved in your mind, or you felt like, okay, I'm going to do something different now, or I don't want to feel this way anymore. I mean, was there anything about that from that moment forward that you recall the moment, but did anything happen? Did you recall anything going forward from that moment that something resulted from that in any way for you?
No, I mean, well, nothing really changed in my brain. I, as far as the way I wanted to do things differently.
Okay. Okay.
Because here's the deal, I wouldn't have been in the rooms of recovery if I if I already found positive change throughout all that stuff. I would have been able to find a solution.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was say I'm not talking about a positive change. It may have been negative.
Gotcha.
In other words, it may have been something that it's kind of like you're right. we know it wasn't whatever it is. It probably wasn't positive. that we can probably be yeah. So
now the question makes a little bit more sense. Okay, yeah. So did things get worse? Absolutely, it did.
Okay.
And so the solution to that in a negative way didn't really come to the form until I started experimenting with marijuana and drugs. When I found that, man, I was like, I finally found something that can turn my brain off for a second and leave me in a relaxed state. Because I didn't know what a relaxed state was. I didn't know what that was.
And I mean,
Go ahead.
Yeah. So the theater, what age were you?
I think I was 11, 12, 13.
Okay. And when did you find pot or whatever?
I think I was like, it's been 16, 17, probably like,
Okay.
16, 17.
About 3 or 4 years. Yeah. Okay.
So I had a nice little gap.
Yeah.
Of just kind of dealing with it myself.
And
feeling hopeless.
And feeling, and in that gap was you've mentioned some depression, some anxiety. Were those feelings things that you were dealing with in that gap? Was that stuff
Absolutely.
that
it was awful, especially like I said, being a young person, not really understanding, because now it's like, okay, this is what's going on in my brain. It'll go, it'll leave, and there's a couple things that I can do. There's some solutions, there's some positive solutions that I can have. Back then, I didn't know what was happening. I thought I was a psychopath, which is still kind of true, but but no, then it was that's a scary moment. Not really understanding your brain and what's really going on, the normalcy of some of these things. Just thinking, man, it's just the way life is. This is not fun. Is this the way everything's gonna happen forever? Because if so, wow, I got a lot of stuff to look forward to. That is not a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
I remember thinking those things, periodically. it's just not never going to go away. There's no solution. And then when I found marijuana, I was like, oh, okay, this is a good, nice little, at the time, positive solution, which
Mm-hmm.
obviously ended up being the gateway drug to, to alcoholism, to mind altering substances and stuff. But at the time, it was my positive solution.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know it turned on me eventually, but,
Mm-hmm.
um, but I would never wish upon a dry depression on anybody. Hey, I wish I could have smoked weed recreationally. I couldn't, but not even having weed was before those days was probably even worse to me, honestly. If I could compare moments in my life, at least I had some type of solution, even if it ended up turning on me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was a bad time. Growing up in grade school and high school.
Gringo, what was going on then? Were you able to articulate that? And were you able to share that? Were you able to give voice to that and with parents or anybody? Were you able to, you know, put that out, say that out loud and,
Yeah,
and what
yeah.
happened?
I think so. After my first relationship, my first real relationship, when I was a teen, in high school, that was probably one of the worst times of my life. It, you know, that's just the way I told you how my body dealt with just being a kid, right? With a week-long relationship that meant really nothing, really.
Mm-hmm.
When you have one for 2 years and it's your first love, and then you'll end up breaking up, and it wasn't necessarily your own choice. That was and knowing how I am dealing with depression and anxiety, and this is before I even had weed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was terribly devastating, and then my parents saw that. They could tell. I don't know if I expressed it. I can't remember these times. Well, there's a lot of gaps in
Mm-hmm.
that time. I think it was a sophomore in high school. And there's a lot of gaps in there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I expressed it, or maybe they could just tell. But they ended up taking me to a doctor. They ended up prescribing me antidepressants, and I started going to a psychologist.
Mm-hmm. How did it make you feel?
Different,
Mm-hmm.
less than, and
Mm-hmm.
different. Yeah, because I couldn't fix myself. It's like, oh, I guess you can't deal with life. I guess you
Mm-hmm.
can't, be a tough man and get through it on your own. You know, so you gotta have help. You gotta have pills that help. You gotta have outside help. Just the stereotypical way to think of, things like that. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
as a young man,
Right.
um, that's exactly the way I felt. If you're the stereotype, that's probably the way I felt. Yeah, the shame as
Shame.
well too.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Mm-hmm.
yep.
So what was supposed to be, you know, you know, you of course those your parents, what was supposed to be constructive and helpful gets internalized as something that is shameful and somewhat embarrassing. Yeah,
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 it was awful.
and yeah,
It was.
and were you able to talk about that?
I was never really honest with my psychologist.
Mm.
I don't think I was.
Mm-hmm.
I think I kind of was, but not really. Not as honest as I should have been. And I truly think that was actually a pretty good psychologist, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
If I would have utilized it, and if anyone's, listening and thinking about, doing something like that, I started getting more honest towards the end. Um, but I forgot what ended up making me not, do a psychologist anymore. I think like I got into a new relationship and I was like, I don't need you anymore. Um, But if I would have gotten honest, if I was completely honest, just like I was in the doors of alcoholism, the fourth and fifth step, when you kind of just
Mm-hmm.
write all your stuff down on paper and then you
Mm-hmm.
express it. That was one of the best things for me in AA. And if I would have done that with the psychologist, who knows, how much benefit that would have been too as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's that is a huge suggestion of mine. If you're thinking about it, use it. And if you use it, don't don't spend $150, $200 a session without telling the truth. Because what you're doing it for.
Yeah, right.
There's
Yeah.
no. I mean, yeah, you wouldn't believe how many people, just use it
Oh, yeah.
as
Yeah.
their own scapegoat of feelings and emotion. They just use it and just kind of tell half truths, tell whole truths, let them know what's
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
look. So
And
that's all I got about that.
and with that being said, so is it the case that thank you for sharing that advice with the
Yeah.
audience. Yeah. Would you say that the your use of the marijuana and drinking, were a way to cover over, mask what wasn't getting resolved through the therapy, and what wasn't work, what was supposed to work but actually was having some adverse effects of shame and other things. So then by using the drugs, it's like, okay, this is the way out. This is how I'm going to medicate this problem. This is how this is the mask I'm not trying to put word. Is that kind of what was going, what began to happen? You found another way out, another way to deal with, another way to cope. That's what I want to say. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a way for me to cope. Absolutely, yeah, 100%. The way for me to finally cope. I finally found the divine solution that I've always wanted.
Right.
I found, and that was it. I was on board. I got to experience, even help with camaraderie. I guess I found a group of people who felt the same way as me. So that was a good thing at the time.
And what age are you now? What age are you then? And let's say not at that point. What age?
16, 17.
16, 17. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah. Well, look, we're gonna pause there, and because I want, in terms that's good. So, in terms of we'll revisit this, and that's a good point to stop. Any other advice you want to share with the audience in terms of what, as you reflect on this conversation? Any other insights that you, based on our conversation, that you just want to throw some nuggets out there, some wisdom from lived experience around what you learned? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's okay to be different. It's all right. It makes you unique. And at the beginning of this podcast, what I shared was different cultures, different countries, different ethnicities, whatever it is. When it brings us together, it makes us a dynamic group of awesomeness that can not only. So just it's okay to be different, because being different can bring something positive into somebody else's life and yourself,
Okay,
of course.
that's good stuff. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, look, like I said, we're going to pause we got Gringo at 16, 17. She's telling the story, sharing with us, and sharing some wisdom, and certainly some wisdom that's important for all America to hear, and given today, given the challenging times of everything that's going on around us. So we thank you for circling back to that and making this applicable to helping to make this a better world. So thanks for your contributions, man. Listen, Gringo, appreciate you, man. Okay, you stay safe out there on the road, and we'll be back at you. Thanks for your sharing. You blessed us. Okay,
Yes,
Hunter
sir.
out.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Gringo. Bye-bye.